Alright, so I would normally open these videos up by saying, what's up you guys, this is Rancid with Sweaty Calves, or Sweaty Calves with Rancid. Uh, Adam Gillespie with Rancid and Sweaty Calves coming at you with another video. Normally I would open up like that, and this one's a bit different, just because I'm going to be doing a video. This is to show the difference in how I do my line art now versus what I used to do. I have a specific individual in mind when I'm making this because I promised I would make a video explaining what my new process is. I'm going to go ahead and start just kind of squiggling what the normal process would be. If I were to do like line art, it would kind of just come out very flat. I don't really have a pen pressure sensitivity setting on my tablet. Whereas if you look at with the lasso and fill tool, there's a little extra line art there, so it kind of adds a little extra dynamic to it. So I'm going to go ahead and back out of those. And I might get a little quiet here. You might hear some static or some noise in the background, but I'm just going to kind of start by drawing the face, kind of sketching in the face the old-fashioned way, which it doesn't look horrible most of the time. But you can already kind of see why I'm not a fan of this. I don't have a very steady hand, and this pen picks up everything, right? But I'm going to go ahead and finish doing all of this, just kind of starting off the rough sketch work. And that's another thing, is if you're doing the upper torso for a female character especially, there's going to be some waviness. Now, like I said, I don't have that steady a hand, but if I were to turn the opacity all the way down, yeah, you can tell what's going on there, but it's really not great. So I'm going to go ahead and put the opacity back up just a little bit. I'm going to select the eraser now, and I'm just going to erase everything that I just drew in normal style, because I'm not necessarily a huge fan of that. What I find useful is I can use the I can use this pen here to kind of build out a basic shape for the face. But if I'm ever going to be doing something, like if I need to add something to a panel, I can do that for sure. I can add in that extra image there. I've done that on several images. This is one of the pages I've done recently. You can see there's a difference between the way that I do the line art on the actual character versus the line art of the material in the background. I use the regular pen for the material in the background when it comes to stuff like rubble and stuff like that, because it's so hectic, it's so crazy. Um, you don't really have to do much. You don't have to pay as much attention to that. And when you zoom out and when you look at it as a whole image, it really does come across quite well. And the main focus is supposed to be on the main character. I mean, I do like the way that that looks a lot. And the main character was drawn entirely with the lasso tool. And I think that that really speaks volumes as to how well this lasso tool can do. Just because you look at the line art, like the weight of the line art kind of varying between different areas. Most of what I do now is lasso and fill, selection tools, lasso and fill. It really does help a lot with that. I mean, here's an example of what I've been doing with this page. If I zoom up to here, you get a little extra depth there. You know, there's a little extra line weight. I got this panel right here that I've been working on recently. I'm actually started this one, but you can already see there's a little bit more line weight. There's some dynamic weight going on in this. Just kind of with the lasso and fill tool being used, the smoke is able to have some thicker viscosity in some places and some thinner viscosity in others. I really like the way that the lasso and fill tool kind of allows you to have differences in the line art, even on the same character. And you can obviously use inking to fill in all the black spaces and kind of add a little extra depth, which I do. But I'm going to go ahead and erase this section here, or just kind of get rid of that. So you already saw what the pen was able to do. You can do a lot with the pen. You can do a lot with the pen. You can make it look good for sure. I'm not going to discount people who use the pen. In fact, I think that if you are using the pen and your stuff is coming out looking good, you're way better than me. But I prefer to use the lasso and fill tool, not because I'm that amazing, but because it allows me to create a little extra line weight. And no matter how you do it, it will always come out clean. So you see the shape around, apart from that little tip at the top, apart from that, it comes out with straight line. It comes out straight, you know? So it takes a lot of the shakiness out of my hands when I'm doing it this way. Because now what I can do is I can kind of add in some strangeness here. And yeah, it might take a little bit longer to kind of get just what you're looking for. Sometimes it doesn't read all the way down, but the line weight distribution, I feel, adds a lot of benefit to this. And this is my first time recording myself doing this. So if I'm a little bit less than perfect at recording myself doing this, I do apologize. But you see how quick I can make this image look like something with just a few things here and there. Adding some line art in. I give them the classic ear. That's probably not even the most accurate looking ear out there. It's just how I've been drawing ears for so long that that's what it looks like. And I mean, it really is just kind of, for me, much simpler to draw it like this. I'm not going to do the whole image of the whole character, but I do want to show you guys why it is that I like this so much. Just because I really, really appreciate the tool and how much it's able to help me kind of just expand, you know, kind of get through things much quicker, at least on my end. Because I do, when I'm doing line art, before I was going very, very slow. Whereas now, with this new tool that I'm getting used to, that I'm learning a little bit more about, I'm able to add a lot more weight and a lot more depth to the image just from kind of loosely following the art that I already have sketched out. And I do mean loosely, because if I try to go too strict, it'll look very flat. If I go too wild, it'll look a little goofy. But if I remove the opacity on the image behind it, sure, that requires some extra shading and some depth to it, but that already looks way better than what I did before. So when I'm doing my art nowadays, what I'm doing is I'm just adding a little extra depth by using the lasso and fill tool. And that's really just all I've been doing to make this look a little bit more like something that someone want to actually look at and read. You know? And when it comes to the eyes, which I always have a problem with because, you know, everyone hates eyes. At least I hate eyes. The lasso tool allows me to kind of finish up the eyes relatively quickly. And I can get really good looking, decently weighted circles for the irises with the lasso and fill tool just by kind of circling around the general area twice. And the eyebrows, just kind of follow that pattern. The hairline is fairly simple. One cool thing about the lasso tool is that you can actually add a lot of depth in the way that you do the overall design of the hair, just kind of following back that sketch mark, right? And it's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that this is the end-all be-all of how to do it. I'm just saying this is what I've been doing nowadays, and I think it really works for me. And might be something that a lot of people might want to take a look at and use for themselves because of how much that I've enjoyed it. And if you guys are at all curious about pursuing an art career or pursuing something within the art sphere, this is a really great tool to have. And of course, you've also got the general selection tools that are really, really great to use. I mean, if you just use the selection tool to select an area that you're going to be working on, it kind of allows you the ability to um, really easily color something in that would have otherwise been really annoying and difficult. And you can do it on so few layers. And again, this is just the lasso and fill tool that I'm just using to kind of fill in this area kind of very, very simply, very easily. And of course you can add depth. If I'm using the shading for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my like cross-hatching background selection area. I'm going to go to hatch, and I actually have this thing called LP flat dry. It's a really great brush. This is kind of what it looks like. Let me go ahead and get that brush size up a little bit. This is what it looks like, right? I mean, I kind of made my own settings. I, changed up the brush density a little bit. The opacity is 100%. The texture density is right there. But one thing you can do with this, if I go down to like 16 or 15, is if I wanted to create some depth in the like the cheekbone area, what I can do is I can kind of come across, and then I can kind of come up just like so. I can add a little bit more depth this way. If I were to just shade from the side like this, I can kind of boom. And then I can use the eraser with a hard nose, and I can just kind of cut out some of that if I wanted to. Maybe go a little bit lighter, boom, boom. And then suddenly you have this, this cool shading technique that you can use with a couple of very simple brushes. Where you're using the line art with the lasso and fill tool, and you use a texture brush to do your shading, and it comes out looking way better than it did before. And again, if I come over to here and I turn the opacity down, I've already got a much better line art base that I can build on from here compared to what I was doing with the original pen sketch method. And I can do the whole video right now. It is going to be a bit long if I do the whole video right now, but I can definitely do that because I'm really actually, I've been meaning to do this character. I wanted to kind of build out this character's image for a while. So I might just do the entire video. Because, I mean, this character is supposed to be a foil for another character that I've made. You guys might know this character. It's Feng Hong. Is a character I've spent a long time on. I don't know if I've talked about him much on the actual channel, but I have spent a very long time developing that character, making sure that the art would be sufficient for that character, developing the character in such a way that would allow for the depth of that character's story to kind of bleed in from every area. It's a very tragic character, and I really wanted to highlight a lot of the tragedy of that character in his story. The artwork is going to be very heavily shaded in that story. I might even make it a black and white, just because I really think that the black and white imagery is kind of the best that you could use for the character of Feng Hong. He's a very sour, very deep, very dark character. And having that that deep kind of dark color scheme of just blacks and grays, I feel would actually add a lot of depth to the character and to the artwork that is telling his story. Again, I'm creating some nice weighted line art, right? Some weight that wouldn't necessarily be in the normal line art unless you had a pen pressure sensitivity thing that on your tablet or on your program, which this program does have that. The only issue is that my computer is so old that I can't actually register on my PC the pen pressure sensitivity. So as much as it would be really cool and really awesome to get to use that pen pressure sensitivity and kind of learn how to operate that properly, I don't have the ability to with my laptop because it's so old, and I didn't want to have to spend more money on a laptop and then get the program again just so that I could have some pen pressure sensitivity that I could learn. So for a while I had been doing regular old line art with just the pen, and it was coming out looking okay to a certain degree. But one day I did the line art, I drew out the character that I was working on, and I said, I wonder what it would look like if I used the actual lasso and fill tool to create the line art. So I started doing that, and lo and behold, I found out that I really liked the way that looked. And I just kept using the lasso and fill tool. And it is kind of a learned skill, I will admit that, because there's a lot that goes into the lasso and fill tool. Like if you want to create heavy lines, you obviously go wider. If you want to create thinner lines, you kind of try to trace back your line as much as possible. And sometimes you can actually create really thin lines without even trying. But I do find that on thicker muscles, on areas that you really want to accentuate, using that thicker line art can actually add a lot of depth to the character, rather than just having the character's line art be very, very thin all the way around. Adding some thickness on certain areas can actually add a lot more depth, and some thinness here and there, I feel like it makes it look really good comparatively. Not necessarily peak art in terms of everything else that you do. And on certain things, I'm no master at getting my hand placement just right. But I will say that when you get it looking good, it really does become easy to kind of tell what it is that you're trying to do. And again, not a professional, at least not yet. I haven't made any money off of this. I'd like to. If you guys want to see more art videos, I'd be more than willing to do that too. Like I said, this was specifically because I was talking to a friend who's also an artist, and she was like, I haven't had much experience with the lasso and fill tool, and I said, you know what, I'll just make a video. And I started recording this like right away. So as I'm recording this, she's waiting for me to respond. And I was planning on making this a fairly short video that wouldn't necessarily take as long as it has. But I just got carried away. I'm not going to go into coloring, which I can do in another video. I'm just going to kind of explain my process of using the lasso and fill tool for the line art in this video. Because the line art is really a very integral part of the story. Getting it to look just right so that you can build out the interior of the image is a very important thing. You can have line art that's relatively poorly drawn and then have really good interior artwork, so the colors make it really pop. But I've always found that when I'm doing my stuff, if I can make the artwork look as good as possible, then I don't have to worry so much about the actual coloring. Now, the coloring is still a very important part and shouldn't be taken lightly. But if I were to create really good looking line art and go off of that, then I don't have to hide as much of the line art, which is kind of what I had to do before with how it looked with just the regular old pen. Yeah. And again, the line art just comes out looking way cleaner. Every line is smooth, every line is just really good, and the only waves that you really get are if you draw your own waves, right? So unless you're drawing your own waves, or you're, kind of picking the pen up before you're supposed to, it's going to come out looking very, very smooth, very, very clean, and you don't have to worry about that waviness. Like if I'm going like this, sure, there's a little bit of waviness, but if I'm moving really quick, that's a straight line. That's a straight line. And I think hands are definitely one of those things that people really don't like to worry about. So when you're using the lasso and fill tool, a lot of the hand weight can be taken care of too. A lot of the hand weight can kind of be taken care of with the lasso and fill tool. And yeah, again, it's fairly quick, it's fairly simple. I don't have to worry about it too much. I just add a few things here and there, and I'm done with the line art, right? Now, is this going to be perfect when I reveal the final image after I remove the sketchwork behind it? Is it going to be perfect? Probably not. But it's a lot better than it was. And I'm looking at this, I'm going, wow, there's a lot I can build off of here. So now, if I were to start shading things in, I would create a secondary layer. And one of my favorite ways of filling things in is to use the fill tool and just fill something in entirely. And then use an eraser with that same dry, hairy type of thing to kind of create a little bit of an eraser pattern where I can actually create some depth here and there. Now I'm not zoomed in, so I can't really see all that well what I'm doing right now. But, I can do the inking and the coloring at another time. This was just a video about line art. It took me 22 minutes, whereas if I were doing it initially, it probably would have taken me a lot longer. And again, the line art's not perfect, but it certainly is an excellent starting point for when I am finishing up this product, for when I do finish up this actual image, and for when I, get the coloring process done, the curling process, and maybe the background process finalized. It really does add a lot of speed to things. And again, if you look at that, it just creates a little bit extra depth and weight to the line art that I think really, really helps. Really helps sell what's going on in the image. Makes the character look and feel more alive, Even though you don't have line art in real life, it just kind of adds a little extra weight. Kind of thins some things out here and there, thickens some things up somewhere, accentuates certain areas. It really does, I feel, look really good comparatively. And again, you can use all different types of shading techniques to make this look good. And I like the traditional black ink for the major deep shadows, and then use a couple of different shades of one color to get just what you're looking for out of the shading. But yeah, let me go ahead and end the video. If you guys want to see more of this, I'm more than happy to work on more of these videos, because I really do enjoy drawing, I really do enjoy creating art, and I have been making a comic for a very long time. And I mean, this is just one of those pages that I was talking about. I just want to kind of plug it. This took me probably a day to finish, which with the lasso and fill tool made it so much quicker than it would have been otherwise. Just slap some some paint on use the fill tool to kind of fill in the areas that you have line art around. I will say this: if you're going to be drawing grass on the side like that, using the general pen is going to be a much quicker way of outlining the grass. And then I just kind of use the lasso and fill tool with certain shades of green to fill in certain areas of it, and then I use a blending tool to create a blend between those colors, which makes it look like there's wind kind of rustling the grass, right? And you can see that in this image over here as well. You got that going on, and you got some of that going on in the background over here as well. I use the lasso and fill tool to color pretty much everything in this as well. So I not only just use it for the line art, but I'm using it for coloring things in as well. And it really has worked. It's really a very beneficial tool. And of course you have a couple of texture brushes here and there that add a little extra depth to things. You know, you got some sand tones, you got some debris brushes that you can kind of bring in, and you got this shading brush that I was talking about with the LP hairy brush, which is what I use to shade in a lot of the skin and the actual, you know, crop top or whatever it is that she's got on. I don't know the name for it, but it just adds a little extra weight there. And you use a lasso selection tool and then a, you know, brush here and there to kind of do some stuff, just adding some weight to the coloring. And I can, like I said, I can make a video for that as well. I know I didn't put her pupil in there, but it's such a small image I didn't want to have to block out a lot of the blue, so I could get a pupil in there, which would just kind of wind up looking weird. But yeah, no, so this is a very simple process that I've just explained to you. The lasso fill tool is my favorite way of doing things. Now, as you can see, I use that kind of wispy line art method to kind of add a little bit extra weight like a weight difference between the smoke in the background and, you know, for instance, her character. There's definitely some thicker lines on her, but there can be some thicker lines on the smoke too. I noticed. I'm not saying I'm perfect at the weight distribution of the line art for smoke, but like you can use a lot of this for a lot of different stuff, and it just comes out looking really spectacular, I feel, compared to what you could have been dealing with. And again, I use some basic line, like just use the lasso and fill tool for this, and it's a guy crashing into something, but it adds a lot more weight to the smoke and to the movement, and just kind of creates a little extra depth, I feel, at least. I'm not perfect, but it's better than it had been. And I mean, like I said, that image right there, I feel speaks volumes compared to what it could have been versus what it is. I feel like this is a really good representation of how much you can do with just this lasso and fill tool. Anyways, I really do hope you guys enjoyed that video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, comment down below your thoughts, share this video out there with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss a single video that I upload. I hope you guys have a great day and a great rest of the week.